Here is a really big question that I'd like to ask. Does your podcast production incorporate a strategic plan? A lot of podcasts don't, and that's probably why they're not one of the top ranked or they're not getting business from it. I hear this problem all the time. Creating a podcast, I'm interviewing people, I'm sharing it, but I'm just not growing it's not bringing me any business. And what happens is, back in the day when podcasting started, maybe you did launch a podcast and you got a ton of listeners and it, brought you business. But you really do need to be more savvy and be more strategic in order for it to convert your leads, to get you a listener base, to land more clients and grow your business. Launching and producing a podcast is so much more than creating those podcast images, then editing the audio, creating those show notes, and letting everyone know that a new episode is live. There's so much more that you need to set up ahead of time, and some things that you need to think about and have it fit into your overall business plan or content marketing plan, and not stand alone as a silo. And I know for me, when I'm launching podcasts for clients, I have this big meeting in the beginning to really set the framework and understand all these foundational pieces so that their podcast is not a silo in their business, and that it's going to drive traffic and drive more ROI so that they can meet their goals. So I'm going to go over some of those foundational pieces that you need to create or think about and plan and map out. Now, the first one is really thinking about, what is the mission of the podcast? What is it going to be about? What are the topics that you're going to cover? What do you want to share on the podcast? Why are you even doing it in the first place? Who do you want to help? And why, and what do you want to share to make that happen? So that's more thinking of it as the listener perspective, and being really clear on what that podcast is going to be to help the listener that you're serving. Side note, it is definitely more effective to niche down. So instead of maybe having a general business podcast, really niche it down to that perfect avatar that you're trying to attract, or a certain service that you're trying to promote, your superpower or something that differentiates you. So, I, for instance, could easily have a podcast about content marketing and about marketing your business. And I have done that in the past. Oddly enough, my podcast has changed a lot over the years. I forget the name of them now, but it used to be like online, I don't know, smooth sailing growth or something. And it was just about business and growing your business. And then I niched it down to like more like marketing and content marketing. And of course, I've niched it down again to podcasting because that's the specific avatar that I'm going after. And it has become much more success because of that. The other item in your why is, what are your goals for having a podcast? Some people have a podcast because it's their sales technique. I know someone that has interviewed people within their geographic area, and they interviewed them to kind of get their foot in the door and to get that relationship. Obviously, they're going to find out about, their business and what they do. And honestly landed like 60 or 70% of them as clients. So that's a super smart technique. Some people launch a podcast for the networking, making those connections. Maybe they want to collaborate and partner with those people or get those kinds of referrals. Some people podcast because they want to grow their authority or really step up and stand up as a leader in their space. Some want to focus on gaining more exposure for their business or credibility, or just get in front of more eyeballs and more listeners and more prospects. Someone who have more lead generation, and some people want more sales. There's a lot of podcasts where, especially in the nutrition and health and wellness industry, where they share a lot of their products. It's not kind of in your face or anything, but they do sell a lot of products on their podcasts, and that's amazing. So you really need to be clear about your goals. And part of that, for me, is working with podcasters that have a business behind the podcast. I mean, it's great to have a passion project, don't get me wrong, or like do a podcast because you love, true crime, or you love helping teens, or, whatever that cause is. I absolutely applaud it. For me personally, in my business, we work with entrepreneurs who are using a podcast to grow their business. And so that's our focus anyways. So for me, there's a lot of time and effort and money, I'm not going to lie, to create a podcast and market it and keep it going. So to me, it makes more sense to have, a business model behind the podcast. And kind of it, like, in other words, and this is one of the questions that I always ask when I'm, working with someone in launching a podcast is, what is your business model? What is the next step for that listener? Is it a coaching program that you have? Is it courses that you're selling? Is it events that you're sharing? So you need to know kind of like, what is that next step for the listener? What is your business model, and what is the business behind the podcast? So just kind of thinking that through. I mean, obviously, having a business also helps with your authority and your credibility when you are a podcaster, because not only are you a podcast host, but you're also running a successful business. And also, all of those connections, or your e-list, or whatever, all of that networking and part of your community that you have as a business, it's a bonus to have that as a foundation that will help drive listenership for the podcast right off the bat. Now, speaking of listenership, this next thing I'm going to talk about is absolutely crucial to know and understand before you launch and produce and market your podcast. And that is understanding your avatar. So in order to attract listeners, you need to know who you're speaking to. You need to know your audience so that you're speaking their language, you're speaking to their pain points, you're understanding where they're coming from, you're offering them solutions and tips and strategies, or you're inspiring them in a way that really, really connects with them. And when I say avatar, because a lot of people are kind of thrown off by this term, is really understanding your ideal client. So right now, if you think of, your top 10 clients or your top 4 clients that you have, think about what their traits are. Are they male? Are they female? Are they young? Are they in their 60s? Are they retired? Do they have kids? Do they have a business? What kind of business do they have? Do they have a coaching business? Do they have an e-commerce business? What issues are they having? Where are they stuck in their business? Or what are their pain points that they are dealing with on a day-to-day basis? And here's a couple of other ones that are really key. Where are they hanging out? So are they on Snapchat? Are they on TikTok? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Instagram? Because that's going to affect, what you talk about. It's going to affect where you're marketing your podcast, and especially, how they learn. So do they listen to podcasts? I mean, if your avatar, let's say, are in their 60s and are retired and they're not listening to podcasts, then you may not want to launch a podcast at all. So you really need to take that into consideration. Do they love videos? Do they listen to videos? And don't be afraid to survey your clients or your list to find out some of these answers if you're not quite sure. Do they like to read? Are they more readers than they are, watching videos or listening to podcasts or whatever? Because if your audience as well are definitely on YouTube and they like to watch videos, then you may want to really incorporate video, recording it, putting it on YouTube, using, splicing and dicing and leveraging little bits of the video. You may want to do that more so than, say, create audiograms or whatever. So it's going to affect your approach and how you market it. It will help you really narrow down the name of your podcast, what you're going to talk about, where you're going to market it, how you're going to market it, and all those moving pieces. Again, launching a podcast is more than just editing an audio and then pushing it out to the world. There's all these bigger strategic pieces that you need to think about. The next thing that I want to cover is thinking about the listener's journey. And so, yes, it's great to attract listeners, have downloads, have listens, have an active audience, and so forth. But in order to use podcasting to help you grow your business, you want to be able to take them to the next step. And this is where I find a lot of podcasters, they just miss the boat on this. They, that whole adage of like, oh, I'm going to put out a podcast. They will come, I'm going to get leads, I'm going to get clients, and my business is going to grow. It doesn't happen that like instantaneously. You need to be intentional and you need to be strategic. So even within, the actual podcast and the audio, you have to think, what do you want them to do next? So in the episode, are you going to seed that and mention your Facebook group that you want to fill or your membership program? Thinking about the language that you're using, even while you're recording the episodes. And at the end of the episode, do you have an outro that tells them exactly what to do next? Don't simply give them your website and hope that they magically stumble across your services and hire you. You tell them exactly what to do. Give them a lead magnet or an opt-in. Hey, if you enjoyed this and want to, launch a podcast, then maybe you want to go blah, blah, blah and get my podcast launch guide. Or if you are looking to take your podcast to the next level and really discover how to leverage it fully for more authority boosting content, then get my podcast leverage system. I have a free training. Go here. So this way you're able to give them an exact step that is natural for them to want to take. And then you're going to, grow your lead magnet or get more people in your Facebook group, whatever your goal is. You can, of course, get them to rate and review. That's always beneficial because it'll help you rank and help you just kind of boost your authority and get your podcast in front of more people. But you do want them to have a natural next step in your business. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier in that some podcasters, especially in the wellness industry, sell a ton of products in their podcast. So they can, let's say, I don't know, they're talking about the effects of lavender and how calming it is and how to live a stress-free life or whatever it may be. But they will then mention, oh, by the way, I sell, I have a great lavender oil and it's this, 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 and this. And I have a pillow spray and whatever. Go here and you can get 20% off by punching in this promo code. So they can casually mention a bunch of products, have like a little ad read, have a little commercial, in there, or mentioning it at the end of the episode in your outro. And then, they're going to get sales. So it's going to help them with their business growth. Another area for listeners to take action is on the website. So part of my podcast leverage system, I do mention publishing your podcast on your website and having like a blog post with your episode, the show notes, and so forth. Now, in that post on the sidebar is a ton of amazing real estate. You can have images and showcase your Facebook group, your products, your different lead magnets. Maybe you have an evergreen webinar, whatever that may be. And on top of that, you can even have images and call to actions on the actual post. Like maybe when they scroll and they read all the show notes at the bottom, hey, while you're here, get this awesome thing. Another great tip is actually to put in a call to action in the actual audio player that is on that web post. Now, I use Simple Podcast Press, and I'll have a link on the show notes in order to give the listener an opportunity to get a free thing. So there's the audio player. It's all branded. It's really pretty. People can like download and listen on iTunes, whatever. But right underneath it, it's like, hey, enter your name and email and get this guide. And so therefore, it's just another opportunity to push your listener through that journey and have them take the next step in your sales funnel. Now, this is a good segue. So talking about your sales funnel, you then want to make sure that your podcast is fitting into your overall marketing plan. Again, you don't want your podcast just sitting there as a silo that kind of does its own thing. You want it to be weaved in and intentional and part of your overall marketing plan so that you can grow your business easily without all that resistance. And so here are some things to consider. So what pieces of the podcast do you want to leverage? So will you write, are you still going to write blog posts? Are you still going to do videos? Or are you simply going to leverage the podcast that you've done, leverage the video version, write some really good show notes so that you can beef it up for SEO? I still write blogs every now and then because they're more fun. I find like I have like how-to ones. Like I have one on how to create a LinkedIn newsletter, for instance, because it's just hard to like talk it out on a podcast. So it's easier for me to write that out. I'll still do short videos on like quick little tips. Sometime, like I might even do a video after this about one of the tips that I shared in this podcast. So you just kind of need to think about all those different pieces and what you're going to do and where your priorities are going to be. Like, are you looking to grow your YouTube channel? Do you have webinars or challenges that you're going to promote and weave in? Do you have a membership program to fill? Do you have a Facebook group that you want to fill? And thinking about like your email marketing and collaboration opportunities and selling your products. You want to make sure that you're cross promoting, and in all honesty, you can't do everything and you don't need to do everything. You just need to be super strategic and think about how you're using your podcast so that you're not killing yourself and feeling like, I got to do a webinar. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do the blog. I got to do a video. I got to look at my YouTube. You can kind of like incorporate it all or have like a couple of focuses, grow it, analyze it, tweak it, and test it, right? See what's working and not working. You want all of those moving pieces to work in conjunction. So everything is going in the same direction and you're able to meet your business goals that much faster. And so I hope that helped. Think about all those foundational pieces, understanding the big picture and the goals. It honestly, it is what I love most about what I do. As soon as I meet a new, client for launching, or even when I'm taking over their production, I want to know all these things up front because I can help them better. I don't want to simply just edit a podcast. I don't want to simply slap it up on their website, create a couple social media posts and share it. I want to make sure that they're getting more bang for their buck, that it is an integral part of their whole entire plan, and that they are taking advantage of every opportunity without going overboard and without killing themselves and being super efficient. And so I just have to know all of these things before I even start working with someone, because it makes sense. And I hope that you want the same for your business, to be super strategic with your podcast production and podcast promotion, and it be, the best part of your business, and it drives the most traffic and leads and clients to your business. So that's it for today. And I hope that was valuable information. And of course, I'll have the links to my podcast leverage system that I mentioned, and also the LinkedIn newsletter that I mentioned, and Simple Podcast Press, just in case you're asking, and have an easy link to it. So if you found this valuable, I would love for you to go to iTunes and give me some feedback on this episode and my podcast. And if it's helped you, the more reviews, the more I'm able to, get in front of the ears of more entrepreneurs and help more podcasters like you. So thanks so much.